So where does the decision to appoint Raymond Zondo as the new Chief Justice leave the Judicial Service Commission? Despite not having its preferred candidate, Judge Mandisa Maya, appointed, the JSC has welcomed Zondo's appointment. Let's discuss that on this further, and I'm joined in studio by JSC spokesperson, Advocate Dali Mpofu. Advocate, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time and for coming into the studios.
Thank you, Braden.
Your statement, I have it here with me, it's short and brief.
Yes.
Overall reaction from your perspective on the decision by the President to appoint Raymond Zondo as the new Chief Justice.
Thank you. Yes, as the statement says, we note and welcome the decision of the President. You know, there are various issues that have been put by people who have welcomed this announcement. One of them is the issue of continuity. We know that Deputy Chief Justice Zondo has been acting in the position for about a year now. So from that point of view, there will be continuity in the office of the Chief Justice as such. So that's, I think, is a plus. And of course, the other, from our own point of view as the JSC, the next JSC meeting is sitting on the 4th of April. So once again, instead of having somebody who's acting who will be chairing that JSC meeting, we will now have a Chief Justice. So that brings a bit of stability and certainty.
Yeah, because for quite a long time there was no Chief Justice. Yeah. He was in that acting position. But I mean, I was thinking about it. I mean, there's like a bittersweet moment maybe for the JSC, if I may ask, because your recommendation was for Judge Mandisa Maya. The sweetness is around what you've just said. There's now stability and certainty in knowing who's the Chief. There's a Chief Justice. But there was a little bit of the disappointment, I guess, or not, about Judge Mandisa Maya.
No, not at all. We always understood, and we've been making this point in and out on all the platforms. Even when I made the announcement of our recommendation, I think a journalist either from here or another platform asked, does that mean that she will be appointed? We said, no. There's only one person who appoints, it's the President. Yeah. So we always knew that. And, you know, the President had to consult us, and he did. And he also had to consult 13 leaders of political parties. So if all of them were to be disappointed, obviously they must have all come with 13 different recommendations, so to speak. So I think it was always understood. Anyone who knows how the Constitution works would have understood that we have to do our job, and the President must do
Did the job that you did had to extend to a recommendation, though? My understanding is that you could do the interviews, as you did very well, open and public, have four nominees, which was brilliant for the country to see all that wealth that we have in the judiciary in the country. But you could have just had an opinion and say, these are the strengths of this one or that one, not doing a recommendation. Or am I understanding it wrongly?
No, well, in our opinion, at least of the JSC, you're understanding it wrongly. We obviously accept that there's a counter review, and you'll never know until the thing goes to court. But our view is very simple, and I've been explaining this to say one doesn't even have to be a lawyer. Take a situation where you and I are interviewed for a job here at eNCA. The interviewing panel must obviously say, yeah, we've interviewed them, we think it should be Dan or it should be Dali. And then the big bosses will still decide whatever they decide. They might still decide, even if I came second, they might still decide to take me. But the idea of that we must just interview the person and give a hug and go home, I've never heard of such. It just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah.
Okay, you're also welcoming the fact that the President has an intention to nominate as Deputy Chief Justice Judge Mandisa Maya, who was the recommended candidate by the JSC for the Chief Justice position. It's an intention to nominate. Yes. That means she has to accept it at some point. What's the process like now from your understanding?
Okay, thank you. Yes, because, you know, we do these interviews really for that, so that we can educate the public, because some of these things are a bit tricky. Thanks for that question. The reason why the President used the word intention is simply because he can't nominate her now, because the term of office of the Chief Justice only starts on the 1st of April. In other words, right now, the Deputy Chief Justice is still the Deputy Chief Justice, or if you like, you might call him the Chief Justice-elect. So once he assumes office on the 1st, then it will be open for the president to nominate President Maya. And we await as the JSC whether that will be the only nomination, because that will then inform how we deal with it. If that is the only nomination, then the general rule is that there would be an interview. Whether the JSC, because it has just had interviews recently, might... the JSC, by the way, by means of the Constitution, is entitled to make its own decisions as to how it the procedures that it follows. So, as we did in November for the CJ's position, we'll have a meeting, decide on the process, and then the rest will be...
I know we're not there yet. Let's just make some suppositions. Suppose she's the only one.
Yes.
Come 1st of April, Raymond Zondo is sitting now in the CJ's office, and then the president nominates her, and there's no other nomination.
Right.
The country having seen her answering the questions that you put it through for the CJ's role, are you going to do a similar process again, even if she's the only candidate, where she's interviewed by the JSC or not?
That's a good question. Technically, we can do that. My personal view is that we don't have to, but I can't speak for the JSC on that. The JSC will meet, as it usually does, and take a JSC decision. JSC decisions are simply taken by the majority of the members of the JSC. So it will take into account all the things you are saying, which I'm quite sure are part of that discussion, because they are relevant. So let's speculate, as you say you're speculating. The JSC might say, look, we're just going to do the process as it is done, full stop. Or the JSC might say, well, we've just had interviews now. Maybe we can say to the president, you know, if we are satisfied that she fits the bill, which probably would be the case, seeing that we were satisfied that she fits the bill for Chief Justice, and take a different decision. But I can't speculate. I really can't. It wouldn't be proper.
Okay, just for enlightenment as well, what is a regular process for the DCJ? That person is interviewed by the JSC?
Yes. Constitutionally speaking, Braden, the process is exactly the same. It's actually identical. In other words, the president nominates, as he did now, and then once he's nominated, it goes to the JSC. The JSC recommends, and then the the president appoints. So it's exactly the same.
Okay. Also in the realm of more speculation, what if she doesn't accept the nomination? What happens then? Does the president have to go to the drawing board in consultation again with the JSC, for example?
No. If she doesn't accept, the process would be very simple. The president would simply nominate somebody else or other people. Then it goes to the JSC. But the nomination is the president's alone. It's unlike normal judges, if you like. For normal judges, you and I or law organizations can appoint and say, we want Moyane to be the judge for Gauteng or whatever. Once that nomination happens, then the process kicks in. But in the case of the Chief Justice or the Deputy Chief Justice, only the President nominates.
Yeah, if she accepts and the nomination, and then you go through your process and she's successful, let's say as you've explained from what we've just seen and noticed, in my view, and I'm just talking just generally, people were watching this with great interest, because she was becoming the first potential possible female Chief Justice of the country. Sitting as a DCJ, if she accepted it and the process went accordingly, does that put her in a prime position when the time comes? Because I understand Raymond Zondo's tenure or term of office as CJ is not going to be as long as it's starting from the beginning. Yes. It's going to be much shorter.
Yeah, another interesting question. It certainly does put her in a prime position, as you know. But just anybody who's a deputy is they say you are one heartbeat away from the position. But it's very important to qualify that it's not automatic, because, and as I made an example elsewhere, if it was automatic, then we would not have had these interviews, because then DCJ Zondo would have just automatically ascended. So the mere fact that you are DCJ obviously gives you an advantage, but it's not automatic. The president can even at that stage say, no, I'm nominating, as he did now, 10 other people or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Raymond Zondo is going to go in from the process that we were observing from very closely. We were carrying it live, like everybody else watching it. What are the key lessons now for you from the JSE going forward? Because my understanding, there were a couple of firsts in this process. Absolutely. Firstly, the president opened up the nomination of the to the whole country, which hasn't happened before. More than 500 nominations. Then there was a panel.
Then he nominated 4 instead of 1.
Yes. And then we also Judge Navi Pilay's panel in between. From your perspective, I mean, you are a senior advocate and you are in this fraternity, you're part of the JSE, sitting here speaking on their behalf. What are the key lessons for the country to take out of this process that maybe we should carry on doing, in your view?
No, I think that's a very good question, because one of the key lessons is exactly the fact that there's not one way to do this. As long the real constraint is one. You must do it within the realms of the law and the Constitution. So this process has shown us, the President showed that even the process of nomination does not necessarily have to be done in the same way that it was done since 1994. There was nothing wrong in opening up to the public, but at the same time complying with the law, namely that he must be the one who nominates, having gone through that process.
And the consultation processes have been done.
Absolutely. Secondly, it also showed us something new, as you correctly point out, that again, there's no God-given rule that he must nominate one person. Look at what happened. He nominated 4. It could have been 5, 2, 3, whatever. And then we then had to adjust our procedures. So, for example, we had a meeting in November and said, well, now we have 4 candidates. So what does that mean? We decided, okay, we'll have, as you saw, 1 day for each candidate. We could have decided we'll do all of them in 1 day, or we'll give 2 days for each candidate. But we after debate, we agreed on this, and it worked. So it might be another lesson, as you say, which we tick. We say, maybe this process, this is good. This is a good way of doing it. It might have not worked, and then we could have said, oh, no, we need 3 days for each person or whatever. So, you know, as a young democracy, we always have to learn. I'm sure organizations all like the IEC or anybody, after you've gone through a process, you take learnings and it enriches your democracy. So
I see which ones you apply. I need to ask you this because you're sitting next to me. I mean, some people were not comfortable with kinds of questions that were being asked different candidates. I'm not going to go into details because we've gone through that. When you reflect on that yourself now, do you think everything was handled properly, or maybe certain questions could have been handled differently?
Well, it's a bit of both, Braden, again, because I think that you know, it's a learning process. So I don't think you'll ever have any interviewing process which is perfect. I'm sure you've interviewed many people. You might think later, oh, maybe I should have asked this question or that question.
Happens every time.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's no different. And for me, I look at it positively again, and I say it's incumbent upon the JSC itself to then sit back and look at this calmly now, without all the drama and
the attention of the cameras and everything else. Yeah.
And as it happens, the JSC decided in October last year. Incidentally, that JSC was chaired by acting Chief Justice Zondo at that time. And we decided that we needed to have a workshop where we look at these kinds of questions, how to improve here, like any other organization. And then we made another decision that it would be better to hold back on that workshop so that we have it only once there's a permanent Chief Justice. So the time is now ripe for such a process, now that there is a permanent Chief Justice, because after all, that person will be chairing the JSC going forward. So it was important that it should be the new Chief Justice, because we could have had a workshop with someone else and then another person gets into the position.
No, it makes sense. Finally, and if you may, very briefly, if President Mandisa Maya accepts the nomination, once it's made, the President is very clear about his intention. What happens to the Supreme Court of Appeal? Is that the same process must go through to get her replacement in Bloemfontein? It must come through the JSC as well.
I think we should make you the Minister of Justice.
I'm asking.
No, those are great questions. Yeah. No, what happens is that there'll be a vacancy for the position of President of the SCA. And then we have to go through the whole thing again. So the only difference between the nomination of a president of the SCA is that the president in that instance only has to consult the JSC. Whereas with the Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice, he has to consult the JSC and leaders of political parties. But otherwise, it's all the same process.
So that's going to be a quicker one, let's hope. Okay, thank you very much. Let's hope she does accept it. And that's just a view I'm giving, judging by the response and comments that have been made and having watched there being there, and I think for the way forward for the country. Advocate Dali Mpofu, thank you very much once again for being with us. He speaks, of course, on behalf of the JSE, and they have issued a statement welcoming the appointment by President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa of Raymond Zondo as Chief Justice of South Africa with effect from the 1st of April. We're going to have to wait for a while and see whether that intention to nominate President Mandisa Maya for the position of the DCJ, the Deputy Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court, will take effect.